My name is Kainat. I completed my graduation and also finished a stitching and embroidery course. As soon as that happened, the entire family became obsessed with my marriage, especially my mother's sisters, my aunts, who began suggesting all sorts of proposals to my mom. Everyone said, now that the girl has completed her education, she should go to her own home. But I wanted to work, which is why I clearly told my mother that I didn't want to get married just yet. I asked her to let me pursue a job first, and once I had fulfilled that dream, I'd be ready to get married too. Hearing this, my mother grew worried and said, "You know you don't have a father's shadow over your head. How long can I carry your responsibility? My old bones don't have the strength anymore. I'm always sick. Your aunts are right. If you get married at the right time, I'll finally be at peace." I was upset hearing this from her. How could this even make sense that she wanted to send me away just for her own peace of mind? But then, seeing her tears and concern, I silently gave my consent. And so my aunt began bringing marriage proposals for me. Since we belonged to a middle-class family, the kind of matches my aunt brought reflected that. She laid out their photos in front of my mother, who spread them out before me. They were all middle-aged men, and their job descriptions were written on the back of each photo, which I didn't even bother to glance at. "Ami, since you've already decided I have to get married, then go ahead with whatever you think is right," I said with clear resentment. My mother replied, "A mother always wants the best for her child. Don't worry, everything will turn out for the good." Then she began evaluating all the proposals carefully. But fate had something else planned for me. 2 days later, I went to the market with my mother to buy household groceries. By mistake, while crossing the road, I slipped and fell. Thankfully, a white Corolla hit the brakes just in time and saved my life. A handsome young man stepped out of the car and came toward me angrily, scolding, "Is this how you cross the road? If you want to commit suicide, find another way. Because of you, my life could have been ruined too." He looked quite angry, and I just stared at him in surprise. "Mister, what are you even saying? Who falls on the road on purpose?" "My foot slipped because my sandal broke," I said, and waved my broken sandal in front of his face. He fell silent. With my mother's help, I got up and started crossing the road again when he said, "How are you going to get home in that broken sandal? And you both have so many bags, too. Come on, I'll drop you." I looked at him in astonishment at this sudden kindness, and then a frown formed on my forehead. "Mister, I admit that I fell in front of your car by accident, but that doesn't mean you can forcefully accompany us home. We don't need your help." I already had a bit of an aversion toward men in general, so I replied to him harshly. Hearing that, his face turned red with anger. "What do you think? That you're so beautiful I'd want to come to your house on purpose? I was just trying to help." He got back into his car angrily and, in the blink of an eye, drove off in front of us. My mother scolded me, saying, "There's a way to speak to people. You always get too worked up. The poor guy was right. Just look at all this stuff we're carrying, and your sandal is broken too. The rickshaw stand is far. Now hobble along." Holding my mother's hand, I limped all the way to the rickshaw stand, and somehow we made it home. The whole time, I kept thinking about that boy's face, shining like the moon, with a sharp, prominent nose. I tried again and again to shake the image from my head, but I don't know why. His face kept appearing before my eyes. After we got home, my mother put away all the groceries and then said, "Get ready, dear, the suitors are coming this evening." Her words startled me. I'd given her permission to marry me off to whoever she thought best, but now my heart was beating to a different rhythm. My heart immediately refused. I couldn't just marry anyone like that. I was shocked at my own feelings. "Ami, I don't want to get married so soon." I didn't even know what to say to her. Hearing my words, her forehead creased in anger. "Look, Kainat, don't try to mess with my mind. It was on your approval that I invited the boy's family, and all this stuff we bought today was for the dinner we'll serve them. Just a while ago, you were completely fine. What happened now?" I felt ashamed hearing her words. What could I tell her? That in just a few moments, I had lost my heart? I stayed silent and helped her in the kitchen, though my mind kept drifting back to that radiant face. After preparing everything, I got ready too, as per Ami's instructions. The suitors came. I spent those moments in extreme discomfort, answered their weird and awkward questions, and then stumbled my way back to my room. After they left, Ami was furious with me. If this is what you were going to do, then you should have said no from the start. You've wasted their time, ours too, and all that money. Ami sat in front of me crying, and I felt overwhelmed with guilt. Ami, I didn't say no. I just got nervous. I tried to explain, and she fell silent. The next day, Ami wasn't feeling well, so I took her to the hospital. And there, I ran into that same boy again. Was it a coincidence or fate? That the moment I saw him, my feet froze. He was also surprised to see me. Then he walked closer. Madame, planning to commit suicide again today? He asked sarcastically, his sparkling eyes fixed on me, and I simply stood there looking at him. Aren't you going to say anything? He asked again. Actually, my mother isn't feeling well. I brought her here for a checkup. Oh, which doctor are you seeing? He asked with great interest. I looked at him sharply, then softly said, Dr. Ferris. He smiled. Great. The video OPD has just started. Come on, we'll start with you. His words stunned me. You're Dr. Ferris? I asked, wide-eyed. He nodded immediately. Shocked, I held my mother's hand and followed him. He checked my mother first and then said, Her blood pressure is high due to stress. What kind of stress are you giving her? Are you troubling her at home? While writing the prescription, he glanced up at me and asked, and I looked down, feeling embarrassed. No. Nothing like that. It's just that it's only me and my mom at home. She's always lost in thought. Maybe that's why, after hearing me, he looked at my mother and asked, What's on your mind? And as always, in her simplicity, Ami told him that she was worried about getting me married. The moment I heard that from her mouth, I held my head in my hands. What was the need to say that? But who could stop Ami? Hearing her words, a faint smile appeared on his face. Every mother of a young girl has the same concern nowadays. At the right time, she'll get married to a good man, don't worry. Then that doctor handed me his card and said, If there's ever an emergency, or if your mother's condition worsens, you can call me and ask about the medication. I silently took the card from him. Then he handed me the prescription too and asked me to come back the next day. Hearing about a second visit, I felt uneasy. We didn't have enough money to keep coming back to such a big hospital and pay the doctor's fees. Maybe he sensed the worry on my face. What's wrong, Miss Kainat? Is there a problem? Yes, Dr. Sahib, coming again tomorrow will be difficult. The hospital is quite far from our home. I couldn't bring myself to say that we simply couldn't afford it. All right, he said, just give me your address. If it's on my way, I'll stop by myself. His kindness shocked me. You'll come to our house? I asked in surprise. But instead of answering me, he looked at my mother and said, Just give me the address. Your daughter asks a lot of questions. Ami quickly gave him the address and thanked him, and then left with me. Ami, what was the need to give him our address? Does he treat all patients this nicely? Has any doctor ever come to a patient's house for free? What if he charges extra for a home visit? We don't have that kind of money. My worries were of a different kind altogether. Ami looked at me with surprise and said, When did he ask for money? He said if it's along his route, he'll come. And if he asks for a fee, we'll deal with that then. Don't think everyone is selfish and greedy. Some people are good and sincere too. I think Dr. Ferris is a very good man. Ami had quickly formed an opinion about him, and we returned home. And then, to my complete surprise, the next morning around 9 a.m., Dr. Ferris was standing at our door. I was heading to the hospital and thought I'd stop by to check on Auntie. I quietly opened the door and led him to our small sitting room, then called Ami. Dr. Ferris checked her and said, You're much better now. Don't take too much stress, and your blood pressure will stay in control. Then, glancing at me from head to toe, he asked Ami, Has your daughter's marriage been fixed? Embarrassed, I quickly walked out of the room. Standing by the door, I could still hear their conversation. Ami said, "My daughter never likes anyone. I don't know who it will be that she agrees to marry. She finds faults in everyone." I was furious. What was the need to be so honest, and that too in front of a strange man? I had already made the tea, so I carried the cups to the drawing room, but Dr. Ferris politely declined. "I'll come again tomorrow," he said, but not in the morning, this time in the evening. "Have some tea ready for me then." And with that, he left. I stood there stunned. What a strange man, acting like he's hosting a talk show, I muttered in annoyance. Ami said, "He's not strange. He's kind-hearted and good-natured." Now there was no point in saying anything more in front of Ami. The entire time, I kept thinking about Dr. Ferris. His kindness left me confused. No doctor ever shows that much compassion to a patient, especially not a famous one like Dr. Ferris. Then the next evening, when Dr. Ferris came, he wasn't alone. With him were a middle-aged man and woman. Introducing them, Dr. Ferris said they were his parents, which completely shocked me. They were nothing like Dr. Ferris. Both of them looked very poor, and most surprising of all was the fact that Dr. Ferris had brought his parents to our house. Anyway, I seated them in the sitting room. Ami went to sit with them, and I went into the kitchen to make tea. That's when I started overhearing voices from the sitting room. Dr. Ferris's parents were asking for my hand in marriage. I was completely stunned. Was this my good fortune or a dream? I couldn't tell. It was true that I had begun to like Dr. Ferris in my heart, but that he would bring his parents to our home so suddenly? Not even in my dreams had I imagined something like that. Ami was so flustered she was practically floating. She rushed into the kitchen and said, "Set up a nice tea spread on the table. Everything should be perfect, no shortage of anything." Hearing Ami's words, I was stunned. "They brought a proposal without informing us, and you want me to serve them a grand spread?" I said. Ami gave me a sharp look and snapped, "Don't talk nonsense, just do as I say." So, as she instructed, I prepared samosas, pakoras, and set up a full table. Then, when my eyes met Dr. Ferris's, I felt embarrassed. The sparkle in his eyes was different, something I hadn't seen before. I knew then that he had truly fallen for me. Ami asked for time to think, but I already knew what her answer would be. In families like ours, a proposal this good is considered a miracle, and it seemed a miracle was happening in my life too. The very next day, Ami called and said yes, and even began discussing the wedding date. But amid all of this, one thing was strange: Dr. Ferris's parents. Looking at them, one wouldn't think they were the parents of a doctor or that they came from a good family. Their manner of speaking was also a bit off, especially Dr. Ferris's father. He kept looking at me in a way that made me feel very uncomfortable. Still, somewhere in my heart, I had feelings for Dr. Ferris. That was enough for me to accept the proposal and for it to change my life. Ami not only accepted it, but also finalized the wedding date just 15 days later. Dr. Ferris was in a hurry. He said he had to go to America to earn his degree in surgery and wanted to get married before leaving. His flight was scheduled, and he wished to marry before he departed. Considering his wish, Ami agreed to send me with him within those 15 days. The whole neighborhood was amazed at my luck. When I was finally sent off to my in-laws' home, I truly realized how much my destiny had turned. A grand house, a luxurious room, expensive furniture, and on top of that, Dr. Ferris's immense love. The first week passed in such bliss, I didn't even notice time flying by. Then Dr. Ferris left for America, saying he would return in 2 years after completing his surgical degree. Being separated from Ferris was very difficult for me. I had fallen deeply in love with him. I had left my mother behind for him, and now he was leaving me for 2 years. Before leaving, Dr. Ferris had strictly instructed me to take good care of his parents, and I had promised him that I would. After he left, I began caring for them and also started helping out with household chores and responsibilities. In the beginning, my mother-in-law told me not to bother with housework, saying, "There are servants at home." But I was compelled by habit, so when I started doing things on my own, she went quiet. And during this time, I began noticing many odd and strange things. My in-laws' relationship seemed unusual. They didn't talk much to each other. My father-in-law was very particular about his health. He ate carrot preserves regularly and drank a glass of milk religiously every night. The servants usually retired early to their quarters, so I took it upon myself to warm his milk and deliver it to his room each night. But every time I entered their room, I could sense a kind of distance and coldness between the husband and wife. Maybe they were just leading a quiet life due to old age, or maybe it was something else. However, whenever my father-in-law looked at me, there was a strange sparkle in his eyes. He would scan me from head to toe, and I would quickly leave the room, feeling embarrassed. Living without my husband was hard enough, and managing life with my in-laws made it even more difficult. Days passed, and slowly I started understanding certain things. My mother-in-law didn't seem to like my father-in-law very much. She didn't even bother to talk to him unless absolutely necessary. Giving milk to him had now become entirely my responsibility. Sometimes I used to wonder, why didn't she care for her aging husband? And then one day I finally asked her, "Mama, why don't you look after Baba? He needs your attention and time." Hearing my question, she looked at me with strange eyes and replied, "Your father-in-law doesn't need me. He needs milk and carrot preserves. His life runs on carrot preserves, not me." Her tone turned bitter as she said that, and I was shocked. I mean, even if he does eat carrot preserves regularly, what's so odd about that? But slowly, I started to realize just how obsessively he ate them, as if he'd die without them. I found that hard to digest. And then one day, I don't know what got into me. I decided to hide the carrot preserve. I warmed the glass of milk and left it in the kitchen. Just then, my mother-in-law entered the kitchen. I said, "Mais, Mama, please take this. I'll clean the kitchen and then head to the room." She asked, "Where's the carrot preserve?" I didn't know what to say, so I lied and said, "It's finished, and I haven't made a new batch yet." She looked at me carefully and said, "In that case, take the milk yourself and serve it to your father-in-law with your own hands." There was sharpness in her tone. Feeling guilty, I said, "Mama, I made a mistake. I'll make a fresh batch of preserves tomorrow." But she didn't budge. "Just take the milk to the room." I went to the room. My father-in-law was sitting on the bed. He smiled upon seeing me and took the glass of milk from my hand. "Where's my carrot preserve?" he asked. My throat went dry. "Baba, it's finished. I'll make some tomorrow." The moment I said that, he suddenly hurled the glass of milk at the wall and shouted, "What kind of daughter-in-law are you? Don't you know I can't drink milk without my preserve?" There was such madness in his behavior that it made my soul tremble. "Baba, please forgive me." "I'll make it tomorrow," I said, my skin crawling with fear. But my father-in-law had started throwing things around the room. The crashing noises brought my mother-in-law running. She pushed me behind her and said to her husband, "You don't speak to your daughter-in-law like that. The carrot preserve is finished, right? It'll be made tomorrow." But my father-in-law began hurling abuses at her. She stayed silent for a while, just listening, and then took my hand and brought me back to my room because I had started crying. "My daughter, forgive me," she said once we were alone. "I'm the one who told you to go to the room and give your father-in-law the milk yourself. After all, you've been wondering for days why I don't treat him well or care for him like a wife should. There's only one reason. Your father-in-law has long fallen from my heart. A man who doesn't respect a woman, doesn't care for her, and constantly abuses her can never earn a place in a woman's heart. When I was helpless, when my son was still a child, I was dependent on this man. He used to make me beg for everything. I've lived my life under severe hardship, enduring beatings, verbal abuse, and still managing the household. But when Ferris grew up and became a doctor, I finally found strength. He had seen me get beaten by his father since he was little. That's why even his own heart turned cold toward his father. Ferris empowered me by transferring this house into my name. Today, I am more powerful than your father-in-law, but even now I've never spoken harshly to him. I've never taken revenge for all his cruelty. And yet, even today, when he gets angry, he starts insulting me just like before. That's why I don't feel it necessary to take care of him or spend much time with him. What exists between us now is just a nameless bond, an empty relationship. At this age, I can't divorce your father-in-law, but I can't tolerate him either. He's always been more interested in young women. That's why he constantly obsesses over his health, eating carrot preserve and drinking milk as if that will keep him young. I knew the preserve wasn't finished. You lied, probably because it seems strange to you that your father-in-law acts like he can't live without carrot preserve. That's why I wanted you to see the truth with your own eyes. I deliberately sent you to his room. If I had told you all this myself, maybe you wouldn't have believed me. After all, he never behaves that way in front of you. But now you've seen what happened when he didn't get what he wanted on time. When she finished speaking, I hugged her tightly because I had finally realized the mental illness my father-in-law suffered from. He had made life a living hell not only for himself, but for his wife and son for years. Now I understood why Ferris always kept his distance from his father. In his old age, my father-in-law's rage had diminished somewhat, but it no longer mattered, because by now both his wife and son had removed him from their hearts. The next day, I quietly placed a glass of milk and a bowl of carrot preserve in front of him. He sat silently. I glanced at my mother-in-law, who was also silently watching me, and then I went back to my room. A little while later, Ferris called. He asked about Mama's health. I updated him, and then we kept talking. While speaking to him, I realized again how different he was from his father. Completely different. He was thoughtful, caring, and deeply sensitive. Maybe seeing his mother suffer had softened his heart. I thanked God that I had not ended up with a man like my father-in-law. Men who act arrogant in their youth, mistreat their wives, and behave cruelly with their children. Such men spend a miserable old age, because the wife no longer remains their caretaker, and love no longer exists between them. And when the son becomes independent, that same wife often pushes her husband out of her life and even out of her room. That's why. Be kind to your wife and children while you're still young, so that when you're old, they still love you.